The Green Bay Packers are obvious Super Bowl contenders after the Dallas Cowboys make the dumbest trade ever and send them Micah Parsons. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland. I will be joined by Locked On NFL expert Spencer German, but on today's show, we're going to talk about some dark horse division winning possibilities, but we have to start with one of the biggest trades in recent NFL history, Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers. Before we dive into it, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, I've talked about the Micah Parsons trade possibilities for the last week or so. I have said that I thought this would be an absolutely fantastic move for the Green Bay Packers to make, a la Reggie White when they made that move. And I also said that I thought that this would be a really dumb move by the Dallas Cowboys. And honestly, it's still hard to believe that the Cowboys traded away maybe the best defensive player in his absolute prime. But if you're the Green Bay Packers, you have to be celebrating this move. This is the exact kind of move that you should be making. And again, I think this makes the Green Bay Packers a true Super Bowl contender in the NFC. Now, I would say my number 2 team in the NFC at this point in time. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. My guy, Peter Bukowski from Locked On Packers, can't believe that the Packers pulled this off either.
I can't believe they did it. Micah Parsons is a Green Bay Packer. I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers, and I am at a loss for words right now. This was discussed. It was rumored. It was insinuated. It was everything. And I know a lot of Packer fans did not believe it was possible, did not believe Brian Gutekunst would ever do it. And he has made the big move they said he would never make. I said this makes the Green Bay Packers, if they make this trade, the favorites in the NFC. I stand by it. The Packers are now the favorites in the NFC. Yes, he is now the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. It is worth it for a player as good as Micah Parsons. He is, at worst, the second best defensive player in the NFL. When Micah Parsons is on the field, I can't even talk. The Cowboys, now the Packers, have the best defense by EPA per play in the NFL. When he's off, it is a bottom 5 defense. That is how much Micah Parsons impacts the game. And now, the Packers have their true field tilter, their game changer. It's time to go win a Super Bowl.
And Pete is 100% right there. I mean, when you have Jordan Love at his age, ready to go, and then you just added a Matthew Golden, the Packers, because of the coaching that they get on that side of the ball with that unit, always have a pretty good offensive line. What my critique for the Green Bay Packers over the last couple of years is everybody praises them and says they're the youngest roster in the NFL. They're the youngest roster in the NFL. They're the youngest roster in the NFL. Well, guess what? When it's time to play real football in the playoffs, they look like the youngest roster in the NFL. The Packers are the one not making the big play in the big moment. The Packers are the team making the big mistake, making the big penalty. They play like the youngest team in the NFL in the big moments. That's been a problem. The Packers didn't have enough bona fide stars who could make big plays in big moment and, like Pete said, tilt games. Tilt games. And Micah Parsons is not only someone who can do that, it's as good of a trade as you can make. I would say that outside of a handful of quarterbacks and Jamar Chase, Micah Parsons, to me, is a top 5 trade asset in the entire NFL. So this is exactly what the Packers should be doing. They hit an absolute home run with this deal. $47 million, 2 first-round picks, Kenny Clark, doesn't matter. Great deal for the Green Bay Packers. And again, this makes them instant Super Bowl contenders. But from the Dallas Cowboys side, I've also been saying for the last few weeks, if the Cowboys make this trade, if the Cowboys really go out here and trade away a player like Micah Parsons, it is the worst trade in the NFL since the A.J. Brown trade. Something that I might know a little bit about. You just don't trade guys like this, who are top 5, clear, game-changing players at their position. You just never get better from doing something like this. 2 first-round picks. Okay, let's talk about Mozzie Smith and the Dallas Cowboys' use of their first-round picks in recent years. Like, I don't trust them to develop the team and build up the team. And here's the thing. That's the next 2 first-round picks. By the time you get those players on the team, it's 2027. Where's Dak at that point? Where's your George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb connection? The players in the secondary that you do like, that you have paid. Jake Ferguson. Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And my poor friend Landon McCool from Locked On Cowboys.
The absolute unthinkable has happened, and the Dallas Cowboys have traded Micah Parsons for 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark. Hi, I'm Landon McCool with the Locked On Cowboys podcast, and I don't think any of us truly believed it would ever get to this point, but here we are. Micah Parsons is traded to Green Bay, signs a brand new deal that makes him the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, and the Dallas Cowboys in turn get 2 first-round picks and a solid defensive tackle in Kenny Clark, who is a starter, who is a borderline Pro Bowler. So there is compensation here. Probably not enough for what you thought Micah Parsons is and where he's going in his career. And here we are. There's lots to talk about this, so make sure you guys are checking us out on the Locked On Cowboys podcast as we break this down and burn Jerry in an effigy. And make sure you check us out on the other Locked On podcast shows. Your team every day.
I feel so bad. I feel so bad for my guys at Locked On Cowboys. And quite honestly, if you're a Cowboys fan watching this, I feel so bad for you. As most of you know, I cover the Titans. And watching A.J. Brown win a Super Bowl with the Eagles and be an obvious steal for Philadelphia, it's hard to deal with that. And even to this day, it's not fun to hear about your team making that kind of a big mistake. And now Cowboys fans have to deal with that. And again, great that they get 2 first-round picks back. Kenny Clark is a good player. But where are you really going to take this from here? And as a Cowboys fan, do you have any faith in the Jones family to build this back up? This is just a terrible deal for Dallas. It's just a terrible decision to do what they did. You never give up on a player like Micah, and quite frankly, they blew this a long time ago. And Jerry Jones keeps saying he wants a soap opera. He wants a soap opera. Well, you have to see that as a Cowboys fan and just absolutely cringe, because at this point, for the last quite some time, it seems like he's valued the soap opera stuff over what you see actually out on the field. And it's cool if you want to bring your team attention and all that, but if these stories start ending with you not locking down your best players that also bring that attention, you know what also brings attention, Jerry? Winning on the field. You don't always have to do it with off-season drama. I feel very badly for Cowboys fans. Like Pete talked about, the drop-off in EPA per play for the Cowboys. Without him, he was a floor raiser, and now they don't have him, and that defense wasn't looking good already. So I feel mostly bad for the Cowboys. Terrible move, but for the Packers, again, they are real Super Bowl contenders now. Today's episode is brought to you by Upside. Look, so many people are out there right now still paying full price for gas. Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now. Start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas that you already need. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card from Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN for a limited time 25 cents per gallon bonus. That's promo code TOUCHDOWN. Offer varies by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Today's episode is also brought to you by Gametime. Look, I love Gametime. Gametime is the best place to buy tickets, period. And look, the NFL season is back. And there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. Let's be honest, all of that is great, but getting tickets can be a hassle between the queues, the login screens, the prices jumping at checkout. It can all be so frustrating, but that's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime's fast, it's easy, it's backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. I literally just bought big-time college football tickets on Gametime and just got my tickets delivered weeks before the game actually takes place. Absolutely fantastic. It's why I buy all my tickets on Gametime, quite honestly. So make sure you download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go. Download the Gametime app today. Want to take a look at some potential dark horse division winners. We talked a little bit about this on FanDuel Futures Day earlier this week, but I just want to consider some teams that maybe aren't given a real shot. In the AFC North, obviously, Spencer, you know quite a bit about the AFC North. The Ravens are considered the favorite. I think there's talent on the Bengals. I don't think a lot of people are giving the Browns a shot, but the Steelers are an interesting team. Do you think there's any chance that the Steelers could find a way to take the AFC North?
I feel like the Steelers probably are one of the more fascinating teams just in general in the NFL this year. And I think obviously a lot of it revolves around just Aaron Rodgers, right? Like the star power of that, but also the controversy of Aaron Rodgers as well. They are going to kind of go as he goes. If he can turn back the clock a little bit on the quarterback that he used to be, rather than the one that he was with the Jets last year. Granted, I know everybody's hanging on to the idea that, like, well, that last 6 games was really, really good for Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
There's something still there. The Steelers always have this knack for being able to hang with the Ravens, surprising the Ravens to a degree in certain games.
Yes.
They always play in very tightly. It's why, actually, I was kind of thinking, like, well, I take it. The playoff game last year, I kind of had, like, a weird feeling, like, maybe they'll keep it close because it's the Steelers. But also, they had lost like 5 straight at that point. I was kind of like, this feels like a sinking ship. Yeah. But they are so interesting because the defense is going to be good. I think we all believe that. The offense is kind of a question mark. I think they're clearly still looking to add a weapon in some capacity. To me, they should be the second best team in this division, especially because I just think the Bengals defense is so bad that I don't know that they're going to be able to beat a lot of teams. Right. Or they're going to have to win shootouts, and that might not always work. So to me, I think it does go Ravens, Steelers, probably Bengals next. But I think the Ravens are just such a class above everybody in this division with the talent that they have, the players that they've accumulated, whether it's through the draft or otherwise. They are just loaded at every phase of their team right now. And they have a guy who's obviously a 2-time MVP from just a couple years ago. He won his most recent one in quarterback in Lamar Jackson. I think it would take Aaron Rodgers pretty much, I think, like turning back the clock in a major way, like looking like Aaron Rodgers from his last MVP season for us to really feel like the Steelers have a chance to win this division. Because I just think it's Baltimore's to lose, frankly.
No, I'm with you there, but I'll be honest with you. I think one of the things that could help Aaron Rodgers do that is a good Steelers offensive line. And it sounds like they're progressing a little bit based on what Chris Carter is hearing out of Steelers camp on Locked On Steelers.
To me, Broderick Jones is like boom or bust. Troy Fautano is just very steady. You're not going to notice him that much, and probably in a good way. He's very solid, very dependable, and I think mature beyond his one NFL game. Like, he doesn't look like a rookie at all, ever, at any point I've ever spoken to him. But I think Broderick Jones has a nice nice trajectory. Like, I'm not saying he's perfect yet, but if you look at where he was in April, you look at where he is now, there's some real progress.
See, there's so much about that Steelers team that you can like. You know, DK Metcalf's pretty good. The defense, they have stars. You could be very excited about that. But I actually think it's that offensive line that will determine what the Steelers can do. If Broderick Jones booms, former first-round pick out of Georgia. I like Troy Fautanu on the other side. Obviously, they have Zach Frazier in the middle as a very, very good player. I think this Steelers offensive line has the potential to be like a top 5, top 8 group. And if it is, I think the Steelers could go 10-7, could go 11-6. And at that point, it's very possible that they could be right there with the Ravens. And if they steal one from the Ravens, which they've been known to do, they could get it. So I guess if you're ranking division like the second favorite in divisions and who has a chance to get it, I think the Steelers are high up there as a team that could take it away from the favorite personally.
So here's another thing that's interesting as you talk about the offensive line and some of the high hopes that group has, I think, in Pittsburgh. This almost feels like, especially with them taking Caleb Johnson and what he kind of brings to the table from his college days as a back that can sort of run a lot of that outside zone stuff. And I actually thought he'd be a great fit here in Cleveland because of the offense that he played in, and very much fits what Kevin Stefanski likes to do. But this feels like a potential, and I know they've always tried to be a run-first team anyway to a degree. I know they drafted Najee Harris with that goal too, but Najee was very up and down. If Caleb Johnson comes in, and he can just give you like that steady presence in the run game and be a productive back for them, they can almost go back to being that Steelers team, classic. The Steelers teams that we know and love. Like the classic Steelers teams. I mean, I guess not everybody loves them, especially not here in Cleveland. But
no.
Like those classic Steelers teams that just like ground and pound the football, run it down your throats. They out-physical you, all that different stuff. And that honestly is a recipe, I think, to beat the Ravens. If you keep the ball out of Lamar Jackson's hands, if you sort of work the clock and you play really good defense, like that's the perfect way to win football games in this division against that team. So I definitely agree with you, like that they are the team in line that I think has the most potential to upset a Ravens team and take the number 1 spot in the division and maybe win it. But I just have a hard time betting against the Ravens, man. They're so good.
It is hard to bet against the Ravens, but, in the conversation, I think the Steelers are definitely one of the teams to mention.
I will say, too, interesting nugget. No team, I want to say since like 2000, I forget what the exact year is, but no team in the last like 2 decades or something like that in that division has won the division 3 straight years. It might actually be never. It's never happened. I wish I had come prepared with that specific statistic again. We talked about this on our AFC North Squad show we did a couple weeks ago, or like last week, but so interesting thing there, like that's maybe the one thing Steelers fans can hold on to other than their team being good is like, well, hey, no team usually wins this division 3 years in a row. Maybe this is our chance to sort of step in and be the ones that take it.
Yeah, and from that question, if it wasn't the Ravens and it was the Bengals or Steelers, I would actually, like if you told me it's not going to be the Ravens, who's it going to be? I would actually probably pick the Steelers over the Bengals.
I would too. I think the thing that scares me with the Bengals, again, is just their defense. They had a lot of issues last year. I know they kept Trey Hendrickson. He's back in the building. That's good news for them. But in the grand scheme of things, man, like we saw they had Trey Hendrickson last year. And I know like they've added some pieces and parts here as well. Stewart obviously comes in and he's supposed to be an effective pass rusher for them as well.
We'll see.
But at the same time, like they have flaws on that side of the ball. And I think it's going to take winning a lot of shootouts. That worked in some respects for the Bengals last year, especially when you have Joe Burrow. But we also saw them lose twice to the Ravens because the Ravens won those 2 shootout games. They split with the Steelers. They did sweep the Browns, but that wasn't hard to do last year. So there's a lot of, I just think there's too many flaws on that defense side of the ball for Joe Burrow to overcome. I think the Steelers are a more well-rounded team, even with some questions about Aaron Rodgers in his older age, to be the team that's probably next in line to try to topple the Ravens.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% there. I just trust the rest. And it goes to coaching, too, not even the roster. I mean, just the entire plan there. But with that being said, although you could argue that, Zach Taylor's gone to a Super Bowl more recently than Mike Tomlin has and won playoff games and stuff like that. But I think we all aren't going to make that argument. But with that being said, I got a couple more teams that I think could be surprises to win their division. And I don't know why this interests me, but they're all animals. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Everybody, football is basically back. And the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards is PrizePicks. And hey, the NFL is almost here. College football is getting ready to kick off as well. So whether you've got your eye on a big name quarterback or a breakout running back, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in the game. And they have weekly flyers that can give you easy wins like the opening game of the NFL season. Dak Prescott, max discount. All you got to do is say more or less for half a passing yard. I think, personally, that Dak Prescott is going to throw for more than half a passing yard against the Philadelphia Eagles in the opening game. But that's how it works. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you just say more or less on stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, Spencer, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We've talked about Micah Parsons potentially going to the Packers. We talked about the Steelers potentially taking out the Ravens. Now I want to look at 3 other division dark horses, and we start with the Atlanta Falcons. And there's a lot of hype around Michael Penix this year, according to Locked On Falcons.
He is a natural fit for what the Falcons' 2 most talented receivers do best, and that's Drake London and Kyle Pitts, which is throw it up and let them win the ball in the air. Let them go up and get it, throw them open. If you just go watch Michael Penix highlights at Washington, and he's the best fade route thrower to enter the league since probably Aaron Rodgers. Okay, I mean, he throws a beautiful football exactly where it needs to be. And then the confidence, I mean, you watch that scream and throw that was a little bit cocky against the Panthers up the left boundary where he just I don't remember who he hit. I think it was Kaderil Hodge. Mm-hmm. But that was a laser that he just threw right past the safety trying to cut it off.
The Titans played the Atlanta Falcons a couple of weeks ago in joint practices, and Michael Penix was impressive. Him and Drake London connected. He was hitting 60-yard touchdowns to all different kinds of wide receivers. So I guess if we're talking about big favorites in certain divisions, I would say the Buccaneers are a big favorite right now. Not a lot of people picking anybody but the Buccaneers. I would say if any team beat them out, I would actually definitely go with the Falcons over a team like the Panthers, and certainly not the Saints.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Like, I think the Panthers just feel a little like they're still a little too young to ascend that quickly. Right. They have a lot of young players. Obviously,
the defense not
McMillan. Good. Yeah, like they just traded Adam Thielen back to Minnesota because they were trying to get this youth movement with their receiving core. I definitely think that's a very fair point. The Saints, I don't think, are anywhere close. I think there was at one point, I think PFF did like a ranking of the 32 rosters in football, and somehow the Browns were 32nd. And I was like, I know the Saints roster is at least better, at least worse than this Browns team. So that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it does feel like it's those two. And the biggest difference really does, because I do think that the Buccaneers seem like the most sort of like steady, obvious pick. Like they're the most kind of well-rounded, if you will.
Yeah.
But I do think that the Falcons are like at that doorstep. And what it's going to really come down to is just like, is Michael Penix, as we've heard throughout the preseason, all the hype around him, is he ready for that stage? Is he ready for that moment? Is he now with an offseason to kind of prepare to be the starter rather than the backup to Kirk Cousins? Is he now in a place where he's ready to take that next step, take this offense and run with it and really showcase what he could do? You know, the couple games he played in last year were shaky. There were some moments where you thought like, okay, there's something here. And there was others where you were like, all right, we still more to be determined. But it was only a few games. So it's hard to use just that sample size to like as the end all be all for what he's going to be. I think it seems like all the reports from their training camp experience in preseason is that like he has improved, he has taken those steps, he's acclimating well, and it's just going to be about like putting it all together on the field. So I would agree that the Falcons are there. I don't know. I don't know that I can say they're going to pull it off because I just think the Bucs are more well-rounded. Right. I'm really excited about a couple. Like I think the Bucs, like Emeka Buka's had an amazing camp. Like what's this offense going to look like with Liam Cohen gone, obviously. So yeah, I'm fascinated to see how that all kind of comes together. Maybe that's something that derails the Bucs a little bit. Is like maybe their offense does take a step back, and that opens the window for the Falcons. The one thing I can guarantee, Tyler, that division is always a mess, especially late in the year.
Always.
They're always like clustered together. They all have like 6 or 7 wins, and it's like it's going to come down to the last 2 games, and we're going to see who comes out like just over 500 to win it. So I can almost guarantee that that's going to happen again. But I would lean Buccaneers coming out on top.
100%. And look, I think the Falcons have enough talent to where it wouldn't be shocking. You know what I mean? So that already gives them an opportunity. And they gave the Bucs a little bit of trouble last year. So if they can stay close and then win their matchups with the Bucs, they might be able to rip it away from them. The last team that I want to mention is one that's close to my side of things. And it's in the AFC South. And another team that everybody is just penciling in to win their division without any challenge is the Houston Texans. But I actually think the Jacksonville Jaguars win the AFC South. This isn't even just like with the Falcons and the Steelers where I think they have a better chance than others do. I think the Jags are going to win the AFC South, and it's because I think they already had a pretty good roster, and now they'll have better leadership, and that's something my guy Tony Wiggins, the barber, talked about on Locked On Jags.
This is why I didn't want Trent Baalke, not because he was Trent Baalke, although I will admit that had a little bit to do with it because Trent Baalke had a track record of not being very good at what he did, in my opinion, but it didn't mean that everything was bad. There are players right now on this team that he picked that we cheer for, and we're glad they're here. Brian Thomas Jr., Cam Little, all of those. We're glad they signed Foye Oluokun, right? We're glad they finally agreed to understand to extend Walker Little. We don't like how they went about it and how they did it, but we're happy with that, right? You're happy, obviously, with certain players on this team that they went out and got. But it's not football, and building teams, in my opinion, is not about whether or not you can cherry pick talent and get it right.
So, there's more to, like Tony said, than just picking good players. But I thought that Baalke actually did get some pretty good players. And if those players could just be led better, I think that they could be just as good, if not better, than the Texans, who I think have the worst offensive line in the NFL.
I feel like the Jags might be the biggest, maybe like boom or bust candidate for in the NFL this year.
It could go all wrong. You're right.
Yeah,
Cohen could not be the guy, and the O-line could be bad.
Right. Like, I'm trying to sort of think through if there's any other teams that I put in that category, but they kind of stand out as like the one for me that maybe fits that description the most. Like, part of me is like, yeah, this could be great. And like maybe Liam Cohen untaps what we've been waiting to see from Trevor Lawrence, and that hasn't quite come to fruition yet for him.
Mine's the Bears. The Bears are a big boomer bust team for me.
That's another one too. Bears and Jags, I think, are kind of those two teams. And yeah, like I think like there's something there with the Jags. I think Trevor Lawrence is still going to be a good quarterback.
Yeah.
Like him
Can't
taking
give
a
up
step
on
back
him
like he did. It's a weird situation. I do think it's kind of funny because I kind of wondered when the Browns made the trade with Jacksonville, obviously, and swapped out the second pick, and they took Travis Hunter. I love Travis Hunter as a player, but I kind of asked myself, like, that's a really big move for the Jaguars to make.
It's a win-now move.
Yeah.
It's like they're a winning team, and they had a top 5 pick.
And my big question was just like, are the Jags really like a Travis Hunter away from winning this division, being a real Super Bowl contender? Like, that was what was weird to me, because it is like a win-now move. Like, if you're moving up to number 2 to get a certain player, you think that player is like, hey, this guy could put us over the top to like finally contend for a Super Bowl. And I get it. Like, the two-way thing is awesome. Maybe that I understand why that's attractive to any team. For a while, we thought the Browns were just going to pull the trigger on him at 2, and then they opted for getting more draft capital, which I understand. So, like, I think that's awesome. It's an awesome story. But, like, is he the difference between them now going and maybe contending on a deep playoff run and winning this division, or them still being just, like, okay or bad again? I feel like it's maybe a little bit of the latter. But I do think like that boom potential's there because, if Trevor Lawrence like finally realizes his full potential, absolutely this team could like turn the corner, win the division. And that's another division. We just talked about the NFC South. That's another division that like kind of feels up for grabs for everybody. Nobody's really like so far ahead. I know Houston has been pretty good the last couple of years, but like their offensive line has completely changed this year. So there's some questions there. Is CJ Stroud more of what he was year 1 or more of what he was year 2? So there's a lot to sort of answer in that division as well. So I do think the window of opportunity there, the doors may be open for a team like the Jags to steal it, but I kind of have my doubts about how close they really are to actually contending as a team.
Yeah, I just think the volatility of the division, and it's not very strong. The offensive line of the Texans, which I'm fading generally, I think those couple of things could combine for Jacksonville to kind of steal one. And the Texans have, been on top for a couple of years, and things just kind of ebb and flow in the NFL sometimes. But with that being said,
Can I go
ahead. Yeah.
I know I brought up the Browns a bunch of times today because I'm here in their facility, but
yeah.
what's weird about that division is like I see three teams that could all end up finishing worse than I think Cleveland's going to finish in the league this year. Like I could see the Jaguars, I could see the Titans.
Yep.
I could see the Colts. I really could see all three of those teams, which is why I kind of default to Houston winning it. But I also think the Jags are the one team that maybe has the best chance to win it outside of the other four.
That's why I'm the madman, baby. That's why it's the take. There we go. So, but anyways, with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. I am your host, the Madman. Shout out to my co-host, Spencer German, for fighting through the elements and everything going on at Cleveland Browns headquarters there. But as I tell you every single episode, folks, thanks for tuning in and stay safe out there.